"You're really going to do this, Clara?" my father Arthur bellowed, his face a mottled crimson as he slammed his fists onto the dining table. "Dad," I said, keeping my voice even despite the frantic drumming of my heart. "I've been paying your mortgage for the past 4 years. I've done everything I can to help, but I am not giving you 10,000 tunes to settle a gambling debt. I just can't." His expression twisted into raw fury. "You ungrateful little—" he spat, grabbing a nearby glass and hurling it across the room. It shattered against the wall, shards scattering like icy fragments across the polished wood floor. I flinched, but did not move. My stepmother Veronica appeared in the doorway, her face set in a look of mild, disapproving exasperation. "Clara, why can't you just help him out?" she asked, her tone as casual as if she were asking me to pass the butter. "My name is Clara. I am 31, single, and, for as long as I could remember, I had been the responsible one. I'd built a stable career in marketing, spending my adult life saving and planning. My father, Arthur, was the opposite, a charming, charismatic man utterly incapable of managing his own life. When my mother passed away a decade ago, he married Veronica within a year. She wasn't the stereotypical wicked stepmother, but she was a silent accomplice, enabling a toxic cycle where Arthur's endless bad decisions were excused or swept under the rug. For years I had played along, paying the bills and keeping a semblance of peace, but this was the breaking point. "I'm not doing this," I declared, standing up and dusting the glass fragments from my jeans. "I have sacrificed enough, and I won't continue to fuel your addiction. If you want to fix this, you'll have to figure it out yourself." Arthur's face went scarlet, his rage boiling over. "You're selfish. Just like your mother was always thinking about yourself." The mention of my mother hit me like a physical blow, but I refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. "I'm done," I said, turning to Veronica. "And you are just as much to blame for letting this go on." Her lips tightened, but she offered no defense. That night, I packed a bag, my hands shaking as I stuffed clothes and essentials into a duffel. I didn't know where I was going, only that I could no longer stay. As I zipped the bag shut, I glanced at the folder of documents I had been quietly compiling. Proof of Arthur's gambling, years of bank statements, and the eviction notice I had been holding on to as a nuclear option. Tomorrow they would see how serious I was. The next morning I woke to sunlight filtering through the blinds of Leah's guest room. Leah, my best friend since college, had taken me in without question. "So, what's the plan?" Leah asked, pushing a mug of coffee toward me across her kitchen table. "Because if you think they'll take this lying down, you're kidding yourself." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I'm going to serve them the eviction papers and let the legal system handle it. I can't argue with him anymore, Leah. He just turns it into an explosion or a guilt trip." "Good," she said firmly. "He's been exploiting you for years. It's time he faced consequences." She was right. For 4 years, I had quietly paid Arthur's mortgage, deferring my own financial future. I had told myself I was being the dutiful daughter, but the line between help and enablement had long been crossed. Every attempt I made to discuss his gambling was met with a dismissive laugh or a deflection of blame. Last night's eruption had been the final definitive sign. I was not going to let him drag me down any further. After breakfast, I opened the folder, laying out the evidence, screenshots of texts where he begged for money, bank statements proving the mortgage payments I'd made, and printouts of gambling hotline referrals he had ignored. "Wow," Leah murmured, flipping through the pages. "You've been preparing for this for a long time." I didn't want it to come to this, I admitted, but I knew he'd never stop if I didn't have a plan. This way, when he tries to play the victim, I have proof of everything. "Smart," Leah said. "So, when are you dropping the hammer?" "Tonight," I replied, my voice steadying. "I'll leave the papers and evidence on the kitchen counter when I go to grab the rest of my things. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late for the guilt to work." As I prepared to leave, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time in years, I wasn't merely reacting to my father's chaos. I was taking control. Pulling into the driveway, the knot in my stomach was so tight I could barely breathe. The house, with its peeling paint, sagging porch and overgrown garden, looked exactly the same. It was a mirror of my father's life, neglected, chaotic, yet still stubbornly standing. I stepped inside, bracing for confrontation. The living room was empty, but the faint sound of the television drifted from the den. Arthur and Veronica were likely sitting there, pretending everything was fine. I moved quickly to my old room, retrieving the duffel bag I'd stashed under the bed. I filled it with the odds and ends I'd left behind: photo albums, a few treasured books, and my mother's silver locket. On my way out, I paused in the kitchen. The counter, usually a mess of junk mail, now held the neatly stacked pile of documents: the eviction notice, the financial evidence, and a handwritten note. I picked up the note and reread it. Dad, I've spent years helping you, but you've consistently taken my support for granted and used it to fuel your gambling habit. I can't do this anymore. The mortgage is paid off because of me, and now it is time for you to take responsibility for your actions. The papers explain everything. I hope you can find a way to turn things around, but I won't let you drag me down with you anymore. Clara, my hand trembled as I placed the note back on the pile. It was neither angry nor vindictive, just the stark truth. As I turned to leave, the television clicked off. "Clara, is that you?" My father's voice boomed from the den. I froze, my heart racing. Part of me wanted to bolt, but I forced myself to take a deep breath and step into the doorway. "Yes, Dad. I just came to grab the rest of my stuff." He looked at me with annoyance. "You're not really leaving, are you? Come on, Clara, you're overreacting." "You can't just walk away from family," Veronica chimed in from the couch, her tone exasperated. "I'm not walking away," I said, calm but firm. "I'm setting boundaries. You'll understand when you read the papers." I walked out the door without waiting for a reply, the crushing weight lifting with every step. That evening, sitting in Leah's living room with the eviction papers filed and the note delivered, my heart still pounded. Walking out without looking back had been the hardest thing I'd ever done, yet I knew it was absolutely right. Leah handed me a cup of tea. "How are you feeling?" "Relieved," I finally answered, staring into the steaming cup. "But also guilty. He's my dad, you know. I keep wondering if I went too far." Leah gave me a pointed look. "Clara, you've been paying his mortgage for years and he threw a glass at you when you said no to more money. That's not normal. You didn't go too far, you finally stood up for yourself." I nodded, acknowledging the truth, but the guilt was a stubborn residue. Part of me hoped the papers would force him to look in the mirror, to finally realize the damage he'd caused. But deep down, I doubted he would ever change. The next morning, my phone buzzed incessantly. Texts and calls piled up from Arthur, each angrier than the last. "What the hell is this, Clara? Eviction papers? Are you serious? I can't believe you do this to your own father. You think you're better than me. You're just like your mother." That last line stung, but I refused to let it break me. By midday, Veronica called, her voice laced with manufactured concern. "Clara, this has gone far enough. Your father is devastated. Do you really want to put him through this?" I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Veronica, I didn't put him through anything. He did this to himself. If you want to help him, you'll encourage him to get help for his gambling problem. But I'm done cleaning up his messes." She sighed heavily. "You're being unreasonable. Family is supposed to stick together." "No," I said firmly. "Family is supposed to respect and support each other. This isn't that." I hung up before she could start the monologue again. The barrage of messages only reinforced my resolve. I couldn't go back. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first, and though terrifying, it tasted like freedom. The following day, the messages from Arthur stopped, replaced by a silence that felt louder than his shouting. Veronica, however, was persistent, leaving voicemails filled with guilt-laden complaints. "We don't know how we're going to manage without you. You're turning your back on the people who love you." Love. The word grated on my nerves. Love didn't throw glasses or demand thousands of dollars without a second thought. Love didn't guilt you into sacrificing everything while offering nothing in return. Leah, I said that evening, I think I need to block them. I can't keep listening to this. You've done more for them than most people would, she nodded. Blocking them doesn't make you a bad person. It's about protecting your sanity. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the phone screen. It felt so final. But when I thought about the years of manipulation and endless excuses, I pressed the button. That night, Leah and I reviewed the documents one last time. The eviction notice was airtight, and the evidence of Arthur's problem painted a necessary picture. You've covered all your bases, Leah said. If they try to fight this, they don't stand a chance. Thanks, I said, managing a small smile. I just wish it didn't have to come to this. You gave them every chance to change, she reminded me gently. This isn't on you, Clara. It's on them. A few days later, I received an unexpected call from the lawyer handling the eviction. Clara, I wanted to let you know that your father reached out to us. He's trying to contest the eviction, claiming he's the rightful owner of the house. I clenched my jaw. Did he provide any proof? No, the lawyer confirmed. And he doesn't have a leg to stand on. The mortgage was paid off in your name, but I wanted to give you a heads up. This could get messier before it's resolved. A new wave of determination surged through me. If Arthur wanted a fight, he'd get one. But this time, I wasn't backing down. Over the next week, I gathered every last piece of evidence. Bank statements, text messages, and every mortgage receipt. It was a clear trail outlining exactly how much I had sacrificed. Clara, Leah said, holding up a particularly damning text where Arthur promised to quit gambling if I paid his bills. This alone shows how manipulative he's been. You have nothing to worry about. I know, I exhaled slowly, but it's still exhausting. I can't believe it's come to this, fighting my own father just to protect myself. You're not fighting him, she corrected me. You're standing up for yourself. There's a difference. Later that evening, I received the lawyer's email with Arthur's challenge, a rambling letter filled with half-truths. He claimed I'd only paid the mortgage as a favour and that he'd always intended to pay me back, offering no evidence of this supposed arrangement. It was frustrating but also oddly freeing. His letter was desperate, full of holes, and completely unsupported. For the first time, I realised how little power his words held over me when I didn't allow them to. I replied to the lawyer, attaching additional documentation that refuted every claim. By the time I hit send, I felt lighter, as if I were finally taking control of a situation that had controlled me for far too long. The next morning, the lawyer called with an update. Clara, I've reviewed the challenge, and it's baseless. He has no legal grounds to contest. We're moving forward as planned. Thank you, I said, relief washing over me. What happens next? The eviction notice will be enforced within the next 30 days, she explained. If he refuses to vacate, law enforcement will get involved. But given his lack of evidence, I doubt it will come to that. I leaned back in my chair, letting the truth sink in. For years, I had been the one scrambling to fix things, to hold the family together. Now I was the one setting the terms. The day of the final confrontation arrived. I pulled into the driveway, clutching the final paperwork in one hand and my unwavering resolve in the other. The house felt less like a battleground and more like an imminent closure. I knocked, and Veronica answered. Her face fell the moment she saw the papers. "Oh, Clara," she said, shaking her head. "Is this really necessary?" "Yes," I replied, stepping inside. "It is." Arthur was in the living room in his usual recliner, remote in one hand, a glass in the other. He glanced up, his expression a mix of annoyance and wounded pride. "What now?" he grumbled. I dropped the eviction notice onto the coffee table in front of him. "This," I said, my voice steady. "You have 30 days to move out." He picked up the papers, scanning them with a scowl. "You think this means anything?" he sneered, tossing them back onto the table. "I'm your father. You can't just kick me out of my own house." "It's not your house, Dad," I countered. "It hasn't been for years. I've been paying the mortgage and I have the documents to prove it. The lawyer has confirmed the eviction is valid." Veronica hovered nearby, wringing her hands. "Clara, please," she pleaded softly. "We're family. Can't we work something out?" "Family," I repeated, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. Where was that sense of family when he threw a glass at me? Where was it when he demanded $10,000 to cover his debts? I've done everything I can, and all I've gotten in return is manipulation and disrespect. "This ends now." My father stood up, his face flushed with anger. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" he spat. "You're just like your mother, always looking for a way to make me the bad guy." I held his gaze, my hands trembling slightly, but my voice was firm. "This isn't about better or worse. It's about boundaries. I've let you take advantage of me for years, but I'm done. If you want to fight, you'll fight the court, not me." He sat back down with a bitter, defeated laugh. "You'll regret this," he muttered. "No," I said, turning toward the door. "I won't." As I walked out of the house for the last time, a profound peace settled over me. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, it felt completely, undeniably mine. The following days were quieter than I expected. The frantic calls didn't materialize. Instead, a heavy silence reigned. I wondered if they were in denial, but I knew the law was firmly on my side. A few weeks later, Laia invited me out for lunch to celebrate the progress. "Here's to Clara finally setting boundaries and reclaiming her life," she said, raising her glass. I laughed, clinking mine against hers. "It's about time, isn't it?" "You're handling this so much better than I would," she confided. "If it were me, I'd probably be plastering for sale signs on their lawn just to make a point." "That's tempting," I admitted, smiling. "But I think the papers do the talking for me." As we ate, Leah's expression turned serious. "How are you, though, really?" I paused, considering the question. "I feel lighter," I said finally. "It's like I've been carrying this weight for so long, and now I'm starting to let it go. But it's also bittersweet. They're my family, you know. I wish they'd made different choices." "That's on them," Leah said firmly. "You've done more than enough. It's okay to let go." As the eviction deadline approached, I received the final email from my lawyer. "Your father and Veronica have vacated the property. The house is now legally yours to manage as you see fit." I stared at the message, a wave of emotions washing over me. For years, that house had been a symbol of guilt and conflict. Now it was a clean slate. The first morning after the eviction felt surreal. I woke up with the immediate realization that I no longer had to brace myself for a phone call or a guilt-ridden message. The conflict was finally behind me. "You seem quiet this morning," Leah said, joining me on the balcony with her mug of coffee. "I think it's finally sinking in," I admitted. "It's over. I can move on." "And here I was thinking you'd throw a party," Leah teased. "No, not yet," I laughed. "I need to sit with this for a while. I've been in survival mode for so long, I don't know what to do with the calm." Over the next week, I began to reclaim the parts of my life I'd abandoned. I signed up for that photography class. I spent weekends hiking, breathing in the fresh air, and letting myself feel truly present. Leah noticed the change immediately. "You look lighter," she said one evening as we cooked dinner. "I feel lighter," I replied, realizing it was true. For the first time, I'm not carrying their problems. I'm just me. "Good," she said, raising her spatula like a toast. "Here's to that." The house, though technically mine, held too many traumatic memories. I decided to put it up for rent. The process of fixing it up, making decisions about the space and envisioning someone else finding peace there was surprisingly cathartic. When I handed the keys over to the new tenants, I felt a deep sense of relief and hope. This wasn't just about letting go of a house or a toxic relationship. It was about reclaiming my time, my energy, and my life. As I drove away from the property for the last time, the weight of the past finally lifted. A few weeks later, I sat in a cozy cafe, flipping through photos from my class. I had never realized how much joy I could find in something so simple. Leah slid into the seat across from mine with a grin. "Look at you, Clara, actually smiling." "It feels weird," I laughed, setting the photos down. Doesn't it? Being happy. It suits you, she said. So, what's next on the agenda? World domination? Opening your own studio? Nothing that dramatic, I replied playfully. Honestly, I just want to keep building a life that is mine. No guilt, no pressure, just freedom. That evening, I reflected on everything that had happened. The confrontations, the emotional fallout, the legal fight it had all felt overwhelming. But looking back, I realized how much stronger I had become. For years, I had let myself believe that sacrificing for my family was the only way to show love. But love wasn't supposed to feel like an endless obligation, a constant drain on my soul. Love was supposed to build you up, not tear you down. I thought about Arthur and Veronica, wondering if they had learned anything. A part of me hoped they had, but I knew better than to hold my breath. Change had to come from within. Sitting by the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The house was rented, my boundaries were firmly in place, and my future was wide open. For so long I had been defined by what I did for others. Now I was finally learning to define myself by what I chose to do for me. I picked up my camera, snapping a quick photo of the skyline. The image captured more than just the view. It captured a moment of clarity, a reminder of how far I had come. This was my life now, and for the first time, it felt truly mine.